Hello, and thank you for joining the Champion Within podcast, your premier go-to spot for unlocking your winning mindset. Whether you're an athlete looking to elevate your game to the next level, a coach leading the charge, an enthusiastic parent cheering from the sidelines, or an educator molding young minds, the Champion Within podcast episodes are packed with value, sharing the tools and strategies to unlock your potential and rise to new heights. Hosted by mentor, coach, and mindset leader Kate McCauley. Let's sit back and enjoy today's episode while discovering your champion within. And now, here's Kate.
Hey champions, thank you for coming to hang out with us today on the Champion Within. You know, if you've been hanging out for a little while, that I love to find guests who are going to give you something that you can learn from. Selfishly, I like to learn from them as well. I do some stalking, and now I've even brought my assistant Shauna into the stalking because there's just so many awesome people out into the world. This guest, Jim Kielbaso, and I met through DMs, and I'm going to share with you that I sent kind of a crazy message to him. Shauna sent me a big list. I love you, Shauna. If you listen to this, you are a beast of really cool people. So I started looking at Instagram, LinkedIn, all the places. And when I saw Jim's Instagram, I was obsessed, of course. And I sent a message, being honest, telling him that my assistant made this list and called it the DM sliding list because she and I were joking and that my teenagers would probably roll their eyes to the most epic level that we have ever seen before. And he and I kind of just joked around a little bit. I think you're going to learn a lot from Jim today. I want you to know before we jump in that Jim is an author, a speed and strength coach, owner of Impact Sports Performance, and president of IYCA. We're going to dive into some of those things today. Jim, how are you? And thanks for coming today.
I am great. And yeah, that was probably the funniest podcast invitation that I've got when you started saying that your daughter or your kids would be embarrassed by the way you slid into the DM. So kudos to you for using some humor on that to get me to respond for sure.
Yeah, I don't think they listen, my teenagers. Who knows? Maybe they will to some of these episodes, but they will definitely tell me, are you kidding me that you're saying sliding into the DMs? So Jim, I did some stalking. I read articles. I listened to podcasts. I took a deep dive in your Instagram. I was obsessed with so many cool things that you're doing. I would love for you to share, and it doesn't have to be exact, but I saw something on your Instagram about, I believe it was Magic Johnson. And you were talking about you being young and connecting it to your why in what you do now. Would you mind sharing that a little bit with my listeners? I think it'll give them an idea of what you're up to.
I would love to. And I love that of all the things, of all the posts or things that you saw on my Instagram, that's the one you found because that's just really cool. So I appreciate that. I grew up right next to Michigan State University, where Magic Johnson played college basketball. He was a high school player in my area near Lansing, Michigan. I grew up being obsessed with Magic Johnson. I really thought, I'm going to be the next Magic Johnson. You know, I spent hours practicing basketball thinking I'm going to be just like him. That didn't happen, so we can break, fast forward. That didn't happen. I don't play in the NBA. I never did. But what ended up kind of happening for me, or what I realized later on in life, is that I didn't really have a coach or somebody in my life that really just sat me down, grabbed me by the, by the shirt and said, you need to do this, this, and this. And you need to stop messing around with the other things and do this and concentrate, and basically put me on the right path to get the most out of what abilities that I had. I just didn't have that person. Then fast forward to what I do now, which is sports performance. I was a college strength and conditioning coach for several years. I kind of realized that, the reason I do this is because I didn't have that coach to do that. So now I can be that person for somebody else. And it's kind of my favorite thing to do, is to be able to sit down, have conversations with people about, what's going right or wrong, help guide them in the right direction. Sometimes tell them, this is getting in your way. You gotta stop this, and you have to focus on this, and whatever those conversations entail. I love that because I feel like it makes, well, not to make a pun, but it makes an impact on their lives through strength and conditioning, which that's also, I mean, while we're talking about it, that's why we're called Impact, because when we were naming this place, my wife was laughing at some of the other names and said, I don't know why you're even thinking about all these other names. What does everybody say to you in text messages or handwritten notes? It's always saying what an impact you made. She's like, that's the name. Scratch everything else. And she was
Genius. I love it.
Oh yeah, she was 100% right. That's kind of what I aspire to do now, and our whole staff tries to aspire to make an impact on somebody's life through strength and conditioning, kind of being the vehicle. And that's my Magic Johnson story. And I still love him. He's still amazing, and he's done so many great things. So I still feel good about having him as my childhood idol.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So many things I could pull apart from there. First, I also want to thank you for the impact that you're making. Sometimes we make it harder on ourselves to create the names of my program and different things. I was trying to be all catchy, and you just get right to the point. What are people saying to you, right? So I love that impact performance. What exactly do you do? We'll jump into that first, and then I'm going to go in a couple different directions, really related to what you just told us about your why and what you do. Who exactly do you help? So if someone was listening, who are you helping? Is it in person? Do you travel places? Tell us about what you get to do every day.
Sure. What I love about my job and my life is that my days are not the same all the time. So it's not boring. It's not like I'm doing the same thing or seeing the same exact people all the time. But essentially what we do in our business is we do sports performance. So we're helping athletes get faster and stronger and move better and rehab from injuries. So anything related to athletic performance except sports skills. We don't teach sports skills.
Right.
We kind of made a decision early on that we're going to stay away from that because experts do that. That's their lane. Not everybody that's doing sports skills feels the same way, but that's kind of our decision that we know what we're good at and we stay in our lane. I started doing this back in 2002. I was a college strength and conditioning coach before that, and really thought that at the time, I'm going to bring what college athletes are getting to younger athletes and high school athletes in the community. Back then, people didn't really understand. There was still a lot of like, what are you even doing in here? Like, is lifting weights going to have a negative effect and stuff like that? Now we work with kids as young as 8 years old into middle school programs, high school programs. We go out to different high schools. We work with a lot of college athletes in their off season. And then I run an NFL combine prep program. And we have in the off season, a lot of NFL players that train here too, in addition to other sports, but that's kind of our bigger pro group. So kind of a little bit of everything. And then most of it's in person, but I do a decent amount of online training and then or remote training. And then through the International Youth Coaching Association, we offer certifications to coaches who want to do this. So we have a speed certification and an assessment certification and an athletic development certification. And then we have some live stuff too. So it's more of like an education-based or organization that we also use to develop my staff here at Impact in person. So they kind of go together.
Oh, there's so much that we're going to talk about. I hope I can squeeze it into this podcast. We might have to have another chat. I just want to throw this out there. We're not really going to dive deep on this, but when you said stay in your lane, there are so many people that don't do that because they want to be everything to everyone. I really just think that phrase in general is so powerful for so many different people. And I give you a lot of credit for not trying to do all of the things when you were starting the company. I also love that you said initially, maybe some of the younger athletes, their teams, their coaches, wherever you were going out and or if they were coming to you, that they didn't get it at first. I appreciate that because the work I do as a mindset specialist now, a lot of people are like, is this woo-woo? What kind of crazy stuff are you doing over there? And it's really based on neuroscience, but it's new. When you said that college and professional athletes, the same thing is what I'm trying to do. It's also connected to my son's uniquely beautiful brain, but the elite athletes, get the mindset training that I do. Just how when you were starting this, and it's commonplace now. I'm sure when I post this, people on my personal pages, my professional social medias will all see strength and conditioning coach. I need to listen to this. What is this guy going to do? Let's talk about the IYCA, because I know a lot of people are going to be tuning in. And I heard you say something on, I believe it was I Hate Soccer podcast, where you said some people want this microwave situation. Let's start there. I want all of my parents, my coaches, especially my youth coaches who tune into the show, to lean in and turn the volume up here, because I thought that it was really well said how you talked about this microwave concept. And then let's go in a little deeper so we can help people do better for our youth athletes.
Yeah, sure. So I think what I was explaining to him, and I had the term that I had thought of already because I had written an article about not microwaving athletes at a young age early on. Because, I mean, I'm a parent too, and I've had 3 boys that have gone through various sports in their lives, and we all want kids to be better, but a lot of parents want their kid to be better like this weekend. And I get it. And it's not just parents, it's also coaches. There's a lot of pressure on people to be better this weekend, and make the shot or, score a goal or whatever it is. There's some validity to that, because if your kid is struggling, getting a little bit better for this weekend is going to boost their confidence. They're going to feel a little bit better. The coach is going to take them maybe a little more seriously, give them some more playing time. So I get all that. Coaches have pressure on them depending on the sports organization. A lot of sports organizations hire coaches, and they then have to fill that team up. They have to fill the roster up.
Right.
And if they don't win enough games, then parents are on the sidelines talking amongst themselves saying, this coach sucks. Let's go find another coach. Let's all leave after this season. And then that coach may not have a team, may not have a job anymore. The bigger organization doesn't make as much money. They struggle. So there's a lot of things tied into getting better this weekend. But the sad reality is hardly anybody that's the best at U12 or U11 is going to be a world champion or going to be a professional or even going to play college sports. It's a long-term process. It's like a slow cooking process. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be trying to get better for this weekend. I'm saying that people need to have that long view and not worry so much about performance as much as development. And I've said this a million times, that youth sports coaches' number one goal, and it's our goal too with our younger sports performance programs, is to make the program or the sport enjoyable enough during that season that the kids want to come back and do it again. Because if they come back and do it again, then you can start to layer that development, and they can have a little bit more long-term development. If you just, are pushing stuff down kids' throats, trying to worry about winning this next game so much so that the kids aren't enjoying it, then at the end of that season, the kid is much more apt to tell their parents, I don't think I want to play that sport anymore.
It's not fun anymore.
It's not fun anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to really balance having fun and winning, because I know I'm going to sound, I'm talking out both sides of my mouth, but winning is fun. So you do want to win enough games. You can't just be terrible at sports and then think it's going to be fun, because no one wants to strike out every time. So getting better and winning there, you are having more fun, but it shouldn't be all about just that. And I think that a lot of parents feel that way. So they focus at a young age on concentrating on one sport. They do all skill development instead of athletic development. And they get really good at whatever the skill is, dribbling a basketball or shooting or hitting a baseball or whatever it is. And they don't think about all around athletic development, which is things like speed and agility and jumping power and visual, like seeing things happen in space and relating to other players and hard work and all that other stuff. That stuff, when people, when a kid doesn't have that, but they have good skills, there's always a certain point in time where the kids that are just better athletes, they pass them up.
Exactly.
And a lot of parents forget that. And then all of a sudden, kid is a sophomore in high school and they've been spending their whole life playing travel ball and they don't even make the team anymore. And people are like, oh, what happened? We did all this skill development. You have to do both. You have to think a little bit long term. I know maybe I got a little bit off topic there.
No, I love it. I could let you talk forever, honestly, Jim, because as a parent myself to athletes and a coach and now doing this mindset work, I was a teacher for 20 years. I actually have a degree in kinesiology. We have a lot of similarities and differences when I was looking into your background.
Hey, Coach, does any of this sound familiar? Your athletes are talented, but they lose focus when the pressure's on. Confidence swings up and down from game to game. Some play tight and second guess themselves. They struggle to reset after mistakes. Think about it. How many games or competitions have you lost, not because the other team was better, but because your athletes got in their own heads? Every coach has seen it. The missed free throw, the strikeout, the dropped pass, not from lack of skill, but from lack of mindset. That's why I created the Champion Within programs, to bring tools that will help unlock peak performance for your athletes. It's also why I lead team workshops on visualization, breath work, and mental skills training to take these conversations off the podcast and bring it to your team. I do this in person and virtually. Imagine your athletes learning how to bounce back faster, handle pressure with confidence, and step into the game mentally sharp and ready. That's the difference mindset training makes. If you're ready to give your team that edge, let's talk. Go down to the show notes after the show and set up a call to see how I can help your athletes win from the inside out.
The youth sports world is an interesting place, and that long-term athlete development, that phrase from parents and coaches who just don't get it. I read something that you nailed it, where you said it was really just words on paper. There's not even really a way to do this. We have to look at each unique child. All the work I do is people-centered, and then it develops into the team concept. I work with teams and individuals, as you do as well, I know. When we don't consider that it can't just be, okay, we're playing basketball, we're shooting, we're dribbling, we're doing this, and we're never doing any of those other skills. And the specialization, I mean, I'm not even sure which direction I want to go from all that stuff you just shared. If you, not me, because I say enough on the podcast, but if you could say one thing, and this is going to be hard, to youth coaches or to the people in charge of the organizations, what should they be doing? Let's start with that youth level, like 8 to 10 or 11-ish. What would you tell them that they can fix?
Oh, so many things to tell them. Where do we start? Well, the first thing that I would do, especially at those levels, is begin every practice with the first 15 minutes of practice should be about athletic development. So what generally happens is kids they'll stretch or they'll get right into the sport skills. But if you just take the first 15 minutes, and you can call it a warm up, you can call it whatever you want, to teach kids how to move. And I know that that's easier for me to do because that's what I do for a living than it is for somebody else. But that's what we have. The IYCA has materials to teach you how to do all this. There's resources out there to do it. Spend those few minutes working on footwork and plyometrics and get them sprinting fast and competing a little bit. And then that's a great warm up as well. Break into your sports stuff, get into practice. I feel like, I did it too. When I was coaching like my kids' soccer or basketball team, you as a coach get so worried about this weekend. They're like, well, we got to really work on their dribbling skills. Well,
right.
Nobody cares at that age. It's more about, are we getting better all around? So spend some time on learning how to implement a warm-up that has some speed and agility and some plyometrics and some flexibility and mobility, and teach the kids how to move so that those skills and physical attributes are developed and are going to assist them long-term. The second thing that I think is really difficult, but is just critical, is parent and coach communication. I think it would go a long way for coaches to have parent meetings and be honest and upfront with what the plan is. And you got to have the right people on the team. I think I would rather, as a coach, and I know we're getting into business stuff now, but I would rather have all my parents at U10 or 11 understand that, yeah, we want to win some games, but this is our plan. We're going to teach people skills. We're going to try to develop them as athletes. We're going to try to teach them the love of the game. We're going to try to make it fun. We'd like to keep them together because we have a long-term plan in our organization, so that the parents kind of know up front what to expect versus just like, okay, I'm never talking to the parents. I'm just going to have practice with the kids. And then parents start to question everything. And I mean, you've sat on the sidelines, it sounds like, plenty of times. Mm-hmm. Parents love to second guess coaches. I mean,
oh yeah,
they love that.
So yeah. I've seen coach's wife, been a coach on the sidelines. You know, sometimes I would actually sit on the opposite side of the gym or at the end of a field for lacrosse, football, because I just couldn't handle it. Yeah. I didn't want to say something back, and my tongue can be fierce sometimes. I didn't want to get something out that I regret. But
smart move.
Yeah, it was. I mean, some people would be texting me like, did you seriously just get up and move? I'm like, you believe me? You wanted me to move.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get into an argument with another parent here. And so many times, Jim, these parents have no idea what they're talking about. They're saying things like long-term athletic development. They're not developing my athlete. They don't know what they're talking about. So it's really tough to sit in those situations.
I think it's just a little bit more of a new thing. Like, I feel like when I was a kid, parents just sat back and just like, whatever the coach says, that's what you're supposed to do. And maybe the coaches were terrible, but it was the same way, like with your teachers. Like, if your teacher or your principal said to do something, you're going to do it.
Right.
Somewhere along the way, everybody developed opinions about stuff. And I don't know if that's because we have access to so much information online. I
think that's part of it.
Yeah.
And we have like all the team, chats and pages and different things where it just takes one person to throw some gasoline on the fire.
Yeah.
Where I remember my mom and dad, I have 3 brothers. I'm the oldest, and then 3 brothers. We're all close in age. My dad coached. My mom was in the snack bar. I remember often my mom telling stories. She would say that sometimes my brother being a football player and we're at basketball, that she would miss a great play or, something that we did. And one of the other moms would like elbow her in the snack bar and be like, oh, Kate just did this, or, Jay just caught a touchdown pass, and then she'd be like, oh my gosh, I missed it. And she was then she would cheer for us. Unless I was oblivious to it, I don't remember it being how it is now. So I would agree with you.
And maybe it's because because all you have to do is like open up a social media account and all of a sudden you have a platform. Maybe people think that their opinions matter more and need to be heard all the time. I don't know exactly what it is, but I think parents do kids a big disservice when they are second guessing or bashing their kids' coaches, especially in front of the kid. Now, if the coach is, doing some terrible stuff, that's totally different. But if you're just second guessing the plays that are being run or stuff like that, especially at younger ages, I think people need to put some things into perspective and to see how detrimental that can be for their own child's enjoyment and long-term success in any sport. So maybe we need to shut up a little bit sometimes, but I guess
I do something called, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, again, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I also, something that I'm really passionate about, and I've said many times, is that most kids' first coach is the least experienced and least qualified coach they will ever have, because 9.9 times out of 10, it's a parent volunteer who, God bless them, they're volunteering to coach youth soccer or youth t-ball or something. They don't know what they're doing, but it can ruin sports experiences for a lot of kids and for a lot of parents. So I really wish there was a better system, and there are people trying to do it, including the IYCA, to educate volunteer coaches how to be just a little bit better. so that kids have better experiences early on. Sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to say
No,
something else.
I love it. Actually, it's aligned with what I was going to say. I was going to ask you about parents, and I do something called the village mentality talk that is basically stacked on when I go work with a team, or if I bring something into an elementary or a middle school. For example, I was with a swimming and diving team. They were done their workshop and I was with them for the whole season. But that first workshop, they're out kind of just talking about what we did. And then the parents come in and I basically tell the parents what we did and then how they can support their kid as a 20-year educator, as a coach, as an athlete, as a parent myself. And it just comes from a different voice. Sometimes if it's the coach, I mean, they're saying these things to the parents, but it lands differently when you come in and say, listen, I work with pro athletes, college athletes, and youth kids, and I want your kid to be successful. This doesn't mean that they're definitely going to be pro or they're going to get that scholarship, but they need to hear from people that they're hurting their kid and they need to learn how to support. And I really don't think that there's enough people saying it directly to them. And that's why I have, and I love everyone I work with, including their parents, but it's a tough love. I'm from outside of Philly and it's a tough love conversation that I have called the village mentality, also connected to my youngest guy who has a uniquely beautiful brain, dyslexia, auditory processing, speech delay. He's now crushing it in life, school in general. And it's because it takes a village. You know, it really is. I'm curious, the IYCA, do they have something where a youth organization or an individual can go and sign up for it? How does this work? Tell us a little bit more about that. So if, you know, somebody listening right now, maybe they're youth, middle school, high school, how can they use that and get involved?
I'm going to answer that, but we have another connection there because I have two kids with dyslexia, and my wife's been an elementary school teacher and learned so much from that process that she's now a reading interventionist and helps kids with all that. So there's so much there, but so the IYCA is, I would say, really remote. It's digital products, but we have live certifications and live events as well. One of our live certifications is it's called the Strength and Conditioning Coach, the IYCA Strength and Conditioning Coach, and it's geared towards coaches that are going to work with high school age athletes. And it's a 2-day thing. It's hands-on. It's like super hands-on where we're getting these people to coach. Some of the other things that we do are workshops for coaches, for organizations. Those are more either live or Zoom based, but it's more customized depending on what. And
is that high school age as well?
That could be anything. That can be anything. Right now, Julie, who runs a lot of that stuff, is doing a whole series for USA Wrestling. We go big organizations, and then we'll work with schools too, or sports organizations. And then a lot of the materials, though, that are delivered digitally, there's always stuff sewn into the materials about how to interact with kids and how to kind of how to guide them through that process and how to understand what kids need versus what parents always think they want for kids. That's kind of how that works. We've actually been experimenting with having a coaches mentorship program. We've been going down that path. Maybe you have some ideas and maybe your listeners do too. The hard part about that is we're not trying to like make a ton of money, but people have to, make a living and their time is valuable. And most coaches aren't making enough money or any money. So they don't want to spend money to be a better coach. And they're not forced to, because in America, you can just call yourself coach. So we've struggled with how to get that out in a way that doesn't take up all of our time and our entire lives, and gets people to commit to it. So it's a little struggle.
Yeah. My oldest son was a basketball player and now he refs for little guys if he's able to in between college classes and things, but he's actually doing football reffing too, but basketball and football. And he talks about all the things that happen with the coaches. And he's like, they obviously don't know what they're talking about. They didn't play. Some of them don't even know the league rules. And I'm always thinking, what can I do with the mindset piece, especially, and you with the conditioning and training and just, human development, people first type thing. And I'm like, do I make a binder and say like, we're going to, I don't know. But it is something that I think is a missing piece. And as you mentioned earlier, that first coach can make or break how a kid views a sport and just enjoys movement in general. And I want to think, maybe there's a couple out there that this doesn't apply to, but I want to think most of those volunteer coaches want to do a good job. They just don't know how. They don't know how to connect with kids. As a teacher for 20 years, I had to go to school. Your wife, being a teacher, you had to go to school. And we didn't just learn, for me, health and phys ed, I didn't just learn how to teach kids how to skip and play basketball and different sports skills. I learned how to connect with the kid and build a rapport and notice things that in their body language, different things that I need to pay attention to. And I think all coaches are teachers, whether or not they realize it or not. So I don't know. I think there's like you said, they don't want to pay for it, but it's needed. I got to think about that one. With the IYCA, you can tell me, I'll put it in the show notes. Do they go right to a website to sign up for this? Do they pay for some digital products so that they can start learning? Where would they go if someone's listening right now? Yeah,
they go to IYCA.org. And in there's a ton of free stuff, lots of free articles and videos and information. And then there's also a store or a resource center where they can look at the different certifications and courses and books and stuff that's available there.
I feel like people who are in the club space, especially, that's a business, really. Those type of coaches, and maybe some of them they need to be doing that. I don't think the ones that I know anyway, when my kids were involved in things, I don't think that many of them are. I think that's putting really their athletes at a disadvantage and honestly their business. I think that they would do better if they had this knowledge and were able to say, listen, I'm trained in this.
I totally agree. And I would think at the very least, if they had the knowledge to know, okay, I'm not going to do this, but I know what's good and what's not good so that I can either bring somebody in or I can make recommendations. I see there's a big gap there. Very much
that's a good point.
Yeah, very, very much like the medical side of things. I feel like I'll have kids come to me with some sort of an injury and it's like, you're going to the wrong person. Like why are you going to like a brain surgeon when your knee hurts? Well, that's because that's my neighbor or whatever it is. They just don't know. And I learned that the hard way when I was in high school. I broke one of my toes, not my big toe, but one of my other toes. And I went to my pediatrician and the pediatrician said, oh, you got to be on crutches and you're out for 6 weeks in the middle of basketball season.
Oh,
so I went to basketball practice and my coach was like, what? No, you're going to my doctor, and went to a sports med doctor who literally just taped it to the next toe and said, you can play. And I'm like, in 6 weeks? No, like right now.
Yeah, we're going to tape the toe.
That's all you got to do. And that's when you realize like, oh, there are different areas of expertise. And this person is really good with understanding sports related injuries and how to deal with them. The pediatrician is, different. They're an expert in growth and maturation and all these other things. You have to find the right person. And same with us. Like maybe I do some mindset stuff, but if somebody wanted a mindset talk, I'm not going to do that. That's what you would do. Just like you might know a little bit about lifting weights, but if somebody wants to really,
I always am saying that I'm going to direct you to an expert. I'm not an expert in everything. And I think that's a coaching issue as well. I'm just going to put it out there. People will, if anyone's listening right now, stop doing this to me, but they will come up to me and say, they're complaining about the coach or the program. And they'll say, you need to approach our school or our coach. I said, that is not what I do. I'm not going to go to them and say, you're a hot mess. I can fix this. They come to me sort of thing. But I do say, just because I do have a degree in kinesiology, I'm not a strength and conditioning speed coach, though. And I say, listen, I know experts in different areas that I will direct you to. And the same thing when a coach or someone says to me, well, we had a pasta party, so we're doing mental toughness now. I'm like, what? Just because you did a little bit of team bonding doesn't mean that that's mindset training. And, I credit them for trying, doing some of the things. Like I'm certified to do breath work and visualization. And then I will hear other coaches. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that other people can't do it, but it's different when it comes from an expert. So thank you for saying that. Let's move to that space now for impact performance that in your business. What if someone's thinking right now, I want Jim to either get on a Zoom with us, or if it's local to you or they come to you, workshop, whatever it is, what should they do? How can they reach you? And what will their athletes, either individual, because it could be a parent reaching out, or as a team, if it's a coach or an athletic director, what will they gain after, working with you? And what does it look like? I have a lot of questions. Is it a workshop? Is it like a 6-month program? Tell us a little bit more about how that impact happens.
Okay. So first, they would probably be easiest to Google me or Impact Sports Performance in Michigan.
We'll drop it in the show notes. So if there's like a website, I can put that in there so people can find it.
So then they would reach out through email or a phone call, and then we would try to figure out like what it is that they want, where they are. Like, is this going to be something where somebody's going to come to us, we go to them, or is this completely remote? If you're near us, we start off with an evaluation. The evaluation gives us a much clearer picture of what an athlete needs so we can design a program and then start doing the right things for them. If it's far away, we ask a lot of questions. So if it's a remote training situation, lots of questions about injuries, goals, what do you have available? What have you tried in the past? How often you're going to train, all those kind of things, so that it's not just like a cookie cutter thing that doesn't really work for anybody. And then depending on what it is, we start doing the training. Here, most athletes come in 2 to 4 times a week, just depending on the time of year and how old they are. When they're here, they do about half the time. They're here for about 90 minutes. Half the time is speed and agility and movement training. Half the time is strength training and mobility work. When we go out to schools, so sometimes we may have more of a long-term contract where we're at a high school every day after school, all year round. Other times, some people want us to design a program for their team, go to them, teach everybody how to do everything one time, and then everything else is delivered remotely. Other people just want everything delivered remotely, and that's just the most cost-effective way. And as far as what they're going to get from working with us, that depends on their goals. But in general, they're going to run faster, jump higher, move more efficiently. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be less resistant or more resistant to injury. And they're going to be able to practice their sport harder, longer, and more often without getting hurt and being able to give their best to that sport. So it's going to basically make athletes do everything better, except you have to coach, get them to do the sport skill. We're not going to have them hit the ball or make the shot. And I think that a big part of what we do is everything that we do, it has to be safe, it has to be effective, and it has to be efficient. And I think people really underestimate efficiency, because I'll see people doing stuff either online or, just being out and about, seeing what people are doing. And maybe it's safe and maybe it's not super effective, but it's so inefficient. You're taking kids' time, you're taking hours out of their day to do stuff that this is not the best way to get this done. And it just bogs everything down. It doesn't allow athletes to use their time for other things, like getting better at their sport or going to school or getting some sleep. So we try to do things in the most efficient manner possible so they get good results quickly. They see those results, they enjoy it, and then they want to keep doing it. So I would say that the efficiency part is very, very underrated.
Yeah, and exactly why they need an expert. Because sometimes people think, I'm going to make this big, long thing, and that's not necessarily what is needed. It's the same with me. I'll tell people it's unique. I love that you said it's not cookie cutter. When I left teaching, I was a teacher for 20 years. And when I left and I jumped into doing this work, many people, when I go out and do speaking engagements, different things, they actually use the words, you want to make this as easy as possible, cookie cutter, copy paste. I said, excuse me? And as a teacher, that never sat well with me. And these are successful people in their own right. And I did learn a lot from them for different things I was working with, like speaking engagements, how to get them, that kind of stuff. I, in my heart of hearts, cannot say that it can be the same for each group or each individual, because everyone is unique, thank goodness, or else life would be pretty boring. So I love that you said it's not cookie cutter. I do something similar. It's not necessarily an evaluation, but we jump on a call and you got to tell me, where are you? Where do you want to go? When you were saying that, and I might have heard this when you were on a different podcast or maybe even on your Instagram feed, do you get people that come to you and say, well, I see this kid or this athlete and I want you to do that for my kid? Is that something that is common, that they expect the same exact results and maybe they're either at a different age or they're just not as good as some of these other athletes?
Yeah, sometimes. I think it some of it comes down to how you set things up in advance, because we have had people in the past where one of the tests that we do is like a 10-yard sprint and a 20 and a 40-yard sprint. And taking a 1/10 or 2/10 of a second off of a 40-yard dash is like a pretty big deal. Like that's beating yourself by like 2 to 6 feet, depending on how fast you're running. That's a big deal. But I've had parents at the end, in the post test, you explain to them, oh, they dropped 2/10 of a second. And they're like, that's it. Like, and to me,
you expect a bigger gain. Okay.
Yeah. Like how much faster, like, do you think you're going to get in 6 to 8 weeks here? So,
right. Not magic beans.
Yeah. So I don't know if those expectations are like across the board. I guess I think more often we have parents bringing kids in. This is not all the time, but parents that bring kids in who they think their kid is better than they are when they get here. And then we take them through the evaluation and we realize, like, I don't know what you're seeing, but, there's a lot of room for improvement here. And I think some of that comes from like rankings and showcases where like we'll get, maybe a phone call saying, oh, my son is the number 3 kid in the state in his sport. And we're like, how old is your kid? Oh, he's 10.
Right.
He's ranking 10-year-olds in,
Who's in charge of that?
Yeah. Like, what are you talking about here?
Some random guy around the corner who's in charge of our league.
Yeah. So I don't know. I do think that we do get a decent number of parents who, for the younger age groups, anywhere from 8 to say 13 years old, they want those kids doing what college and pro athletes are doing.
Right. Yes.
Versus thinking about what did those pros do when they were 8 to 13 years old.
Right.
And what was that process? And I get that a lot. And I've gotten comments like that online also, like if I talk about, oh, well, a 10-year-old needs to be playing multiple sports and learning about themselves. People will say, oh, well, do you think that Messi played multiple sports? Well, yeah, he kind of did, and those clubs, those big clubs, they just put it into their curriculum. So you don't have to be good at multiple sports, but they put it in so that they're doing lots of different activities. Right. So I think people get mistaken.
Goodness, you're dropping a lot of great things there, Jim, because I too think that multiple sport athletes are all around better athletes, and they gain so many different skills in life.
Yeah.
And in athletic performance when they play multiple skills, not to mention the injury, the burnout. And, if you have the same coach from 10 all the way through to 18, first off, you shouldn't, because the same coach shouldn't be your 8-year-old coach and your, 17-year-old coach, in my opinion. But if you're just playing that sport, it's a lot of heaviness for the kid to carry. Like, you're going to specialize in this and you're going to get a scholarship. You're going to do this. That's a lot of pressure on a kid. And as we were saying in the beginning, it's not fun, Now, don't get me wrong. There are some kids that have this passion and want to do that. But again, when we were younger, I don't remember this happening. When I was coaching, probably early 2000s, I remember a girl coming to me saying, I'm not playing basketball next year and she was going into 8th grade, because I'm specializing in softball. And it was like a shock to me then. And when I was an athlete, I don't remember this being as crazy as it is now. Of course, it happened a little bit, but many of the greats, and we could talk forever about that, as you said, have played multiple sports and they talk about it. But parents still, I don't know if it's the club teams or like the AAU circuit, whoever's selling this idea. I think that it's going to end up in a lot of injuries. It's going to end up in burnout, a lot of mental heaviness and things that kids are going to be handling that their parents didn't necessarily want to give them, but they're contributing to it.
Yeah. And I think that some people listening to this that are like one of the sport purists, like a lot of soccer people believe like you don't need to do other sports because you just have to play soccer. And baseball, some people feel the same way.
They probably turned the podcast off already.
Yeah, probably. When we talk about kids playing multiple sports, they don't have to be amazing at all those sports. They don't have to be elite at every single sport they're playing. So I will tell parents all the time, yeah, your schedule is too busy to play two like travel sports. Like it's just physically impossible sometimes to be at all those places. But you could sign up for rec basketball for 6 weeks in the winter. And it's just like, let them play with their friends and play a game and do something different. That's going to give them benefits on spatial awareness and how to work with people and how to compete and do these things. Now there's always a point and have fun. Now there's always a point where they're not going to be able to do it anymore and they're going to start specializing. But what that's kind of doing or coming to a place like what we do and doing training, it's a different stimulus. It's a different environment. It's almost like playing a second sport because another big difference is kids don't get like they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. 20 or 30, 40 years ago, we were all outside on our own, grabbing friends and saying, let's play pickup basketball, or let's play pickup this or that, or let's make up our own sport and our own rules and we'll just do things in the backyard. Today, most people want everything structured. They want to be told what to do. They want to, it has to be a structured practice to get the most out of it. Kids are driven to these things and it's organized. There's some big value in play. Just like go play.
We could do a whole podcast on that, Jim.
Yeah, we really could. So that's one of the benefits of playing a sport that's not serious. Yes, you're a soccer player. You're probably going to be a really, really good soccer player. Go play basketball on a rec team that's free and you're going to be terrible at it. And that's okay. Just have fun.
Yeah. I mean, so much to learn just from that, having that setback, that failure, knowing how to move through that, because then you can use it in soccer.
Yeah. Because
everything is not going to be sunshine and rainbows. And it's okay if soccer, basketball is your sport. This is my favorite.
It's great.
I'm here for it. My oldest was like that with basketball, but he also played lacrosse. He played baseball until it conflicted with lacrosse because we couldn't be at two fields at the same time. He played football. I think that too many times this is happening earlier and earlier. To be quite honest, who's picking the passion there? At like age 9, you're going to decide that your kid is all in for travel baseball and just say no basketball, no soccer. No.
Right.
I think that's kind of terrible. I'm sure I'm going to get some hate about that one, but I don't know. I just think it's not your passion. It shouldn't be anyway. Like it should be theirs, which is I guess a whole nother topic too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Jim, we could talk forever. I know you're a busy guy, so I don't want to keep you. I'm going to go to my last question. Before I do, tell everyone again, where are the best places to connect with you? It should be social media, websites. I can drop your email. Where's the best place if people are thinking, I really need Jim and the work he does in my life?
The social media that I'm on the most is right now is Instagram. And it's just my name, Jim Kielbaso. You could also look up our business, Impact Sports Performance, or you could go and Google us online or at the IYCA. The thing that I look at the most is my Instagram. And so, if somebody messages me there, like you did, that's
sliding into the DMs.
Yeah, that's typically where I'm going to see something.
Okay. Well, I will definitely, for those who are listening to the podcast, put all of that right down there so you don't have to Google anything. I will give you the direct links. You just click on that and send Jim a message, check the website, the IYCA. I'll put all of that because I think it is all very relevant and important. Thank you for sharing all of that. We're going to jump to our last question. The podcast is called The Champion Within. So if you were the main character in a movie called The Champion Within, and we're at a cliffhanger moment, the screen goes to black, what are the people watching going to be hoping that you do next?
Well, I thought about this question, and I have my question to you is,
okay,
is this something that is the cliffhanger starting right now, or was the cliffhanger somewhere in the movie? Because my cliffhanger happened about 5 years ago. So I think
I feel like we can let you be the script writer and director there. No one has asked me that before, so I love that. If you want to take it back to where your cliffhanger was, or you're thinking right now and where you're going next, I'm here for either one.
Okay. Well, my cliffhanger was during COVID. About a year before COVID hit, a hospital system came in and purchased our training program, and my staff and I had to go with that, and we were working for a hospital, and it was just it was not a good fit. And when COVID shut everything down, everyone was kind of miserable, but we were all stuck, and the screen would go black right there, like, well, what are you going to do now? And what I ended up doing is I asked them to fire me so that I could get out of my contract there, and in the middle of not being able to be kind of in person, started Impact, our own sports performance program and brand. And I think people had been wanting me to, I don't think this, I know people had been wanting me to do this for a long, long time. And sometimes things just don't, it's not the right timing. Like I had, I was helping my kids, and, life was in the way. It would have been hard to start a business up. But that moment, like, really was a big defining moment for me to, in a terrible time. I mean, I was almost 50 years old and completely starting over again. That's what the crowd was screaming at me when it faded to black, is like, go do it yourself. Just like bet on yourself. Right. And I did. And a bunch of my employees came with me, and they're amazing. And it's been like an awesome ride. Sometimes you have to bet on yourself, and it's going to be a difficult situation. But that was my cliffhanger moment. And I think I love it. And I'm still in the middle of doing it.
Sure. The journey never ends, right? Yeah. Jim, you and I have so many similarities. I actually resigned during the pandemic and started my business after 20 years of teaching. And same thing, people weren't necessarily screaming it, but a little bit. There were some whispers, and I bet on myself. I tell people that same exact line. I bet on myself. I chose me. I chose my family in that situation. I love that you bet on yourself. I love that that's what you chose for your cliffhanger answer. Thank you for the work you do, the impact you make. Your wife was right. Impact is definitely the main part of that business name there. I'm excited to see it continue to grow for you. And thank you for hanging out with us. Is there anything else you want to desperately tell our listeners?
No, but just thank you for having me on and for stalking me and figuring out that this would be a good fit. What you're doing is awesome. This mindset stuff is like sports performance was 20 or 30 years ago, where people are trying to figure it out. And, and you're probably spending a lot of time educating people on what you do so that they can determine if you're the right person and what, how you can help them. So kudos to you for being out there and doing a podcast and doing all this, this legwork to make it work. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I know we'll probably chat again, because I'm going to edit this and think, we should talk more about that. So I'm sure that I'm going to invite you back on. I'm so grateful that you were here. And for my listeners, be sure to go down to the show notes, click on those links, connect with Jim, reach out to him. I'm just going to put it out there. You need it. You need this. Work with him, whether it's strength and conditioning, speed coaching, and the IYCA information. I mean, there's so many people who I know personally who listen to the podcast. I'm talking to you directly, and people I don't know. You need to do this. So thanks again for hanging out with us, and have an amazing rest of your week.
Thanks. You too, Kate.
Thank you for hanging out with Kate today. And whether you're going to coach, teach, cheer from the sidelines, or hitting the field yourself, remember, mindset is everything. Don't forget to follow the show for the latest episodes, as we all need a little extra motivation, humor, and sanity in our busy lives. Now, go and unleash your champion within you, one step at a time. We're always rooting for you.